Okay, Podsters, we're back, and I am so excited about this topic. So here's what happens. Like in the middle of the night, I'll wake up and I'll say, oh my God, this is what I want to talk about on the podcast. And this is what happened. And this happened about a week ago. I was in Florida. So I had a lot more peace of mind, fewer things on my to-do list, beautiful sunshine every day. It was amazing. So I get all my creative ideas. So I said, I want to talk about consumption and how what you consume impacts your life. And I'm going to get into what I mean about that in a second. But before I do that, who remembers Schoolhouse Rock? Do you remember? It was conjunction, junction, conjunction, junction. What's your function? If you're from the States and you're of a certain age, every day after school, there used to be a program on TV. It was called Schoolhouse Rock. And it's where they would teach us stuff about the Constitution of the United States and what is a conjunction, which is actually, conjunction, I think, links to 2 or 3 words together. So there was a song called Conjunction Junction, What's Your Function? So this is my digression to consumption. So when I talk about consumption, the spirit of this is, what are you consuming into your brain? When most people think about consumption, they think about food and what are you fueling your body with? What are you putting into your body? For me, and for the purposes of today's podcast, I want to talk about how you're fueling, what you're consuming in your mind, in your heart, and as you're going through your day. Words matter here on Unmute Yourself, the podcast. And I did a quick word hippo search. For those of you who have never heard of word hippo, look it up and thank me later. Word hippo is it's like a thesaurus. And you can put in any word and it'll give you all the antonyms, synonyms, all the things. So when I looked up consumption, because I wanted to try to name this something else. And when I looked up consumption, here's what I found. This is interesting. Frequenting, investing, following, listening, endorsing, accepting, and expending. So think about those words as it relates to what you're watching, what you're listening to, the conversations you're having, what you're viewing. Frequent, invest, follow, listen, expend, endorse, and accept. I thought that was all really interesting because if you think about these words, accepting, endorsing, expending, you could be mindlessly scrolling through your feed. Let's say you're on social media and you're mindlessly going through your feed. Think about that. You are expending energy on this. You are absorbing what's coming at you. You are accepting what's coming at you to a certain point. So this idea came to me, like I said, as I was in Florida. I was starting my inward practice. For those of us who live in New England, winters can be a little harsh here. So I like to use that time to go inward and to get my game face on and to pregame for the coming year. So that is the spirit with which I bring you this episode. So let's talk about this. We have the obvious. We have food. So when you think about food and what you put in your mouth, today we're talking about fuel and food for your mind and your spirit, if you will, and your thoughts. So let's talk about social for a minute because I started with that. And to me, that's one of the ones that's the most obvious. A long time ago, probably 3 years ago, I was following actually Melissa Urban. She co-founded the Whole30. She's big on boundaries. She's really great. And she has what she calls Unfollow Friday. So every Friday, she'll go in and unfollow a bunch of people that are no longer bringing her joy or no longer supporting her highest level. So she goes in on Fridays and she starts unfollowing people. So I started doing that. And it's not from the spirit of, I'm going to unfollow and I don't like this person, I'm going to unfollow. And it's not that. It's if I'm getting triggered or if I'm feeling bad about something that I'm seeing in my social media feed, that's a choice. And all you need to do is unfollow. And think about it. If it's a family member, like let's say you believe you don't have a choice, you have to follow this person. First of all, I'm calling BS on that. You get to decide the energy you let into your life, period. And in person, sure, there are family obligations that you need to go to. There are friend obligations that you need to go to. Yes. Social media, nobody's making you follow anyone. So check yourself if that's your rationale. However, if you feel strongly that it will rock the boat too much and it will hurt too many feelings, You can mute the person. A lot of people don't know about this. I was shocked when I found out about this a couple of years ago. You can go in your feed. This is Instagram. This is Facebook. This is, I think LinkedIn has a feature. I'm not sure. And you can mute them. So that means you're still following them, but they're not going to show up on your feed everywhere. So you're not going to get caught, if you will, for lack of a better term. And you just kind of quiet them for a little while. Great. Why not use that? Why not use that? The other day, I think it was 2 days ago, I was scrolling through. Unfortunately, I get most of my news from Instagram and the channels that I follow. I don't watch the news anymore. I haven't watched a news program since probably 3 or 4 years. So my news feed is curated to me, which there's some dangers with that because it's only the accounts that I follow. And at the same time, it's accounts that I like and trust. So I pulled up this one account. It might have been Harvard Business Review. I can't remember exactly who it was. There were 4 slides. The first slide was about the devastation happening in Gaza. I swiped. The next slide was about Halloween mass shootings. I swiped. The next one was about another mass shooting. I swiped. And the last one was about the spike in interest rates and how we're headed towards an economic debacle. So I unfollowed. I'm like, why am I like, this should be fun for me. Why am I getting fed these horrible fear-mongering stories that could be true and in many cases are true, but I'd rather choose when I engage and choose when I lean into that. So all of this is to say, you can unfollow anybody anytime you want. Consider this permission, or at least mute them. All right, let's talk about podcasts. This is funny. I like to think I listen to a lot of podcasts, but really I listen to probably the same 4 or 5. I love that I'm one of the podcasts you listen to. I am honored, truly flattered. I got a message yesterday from someone who follows that said, I turned on my computer today and you didn't have a new podcast because I only put them out once a week. Spoiler alert, by the way, I'm going to do a Did the Thing series where I'm going to do little mini vignettes. I'm going to probably produce those on Thursdays. Really quick, 15 minutes or less, how this person overcame their limiting beliefs and did the thing anyway. So stay tuned for that. Those are probably going to start airing in December or January. So I'm honored that I'm one of the podcasts that you listen to. So what I found was I had selected and followed all these podcasts based on when I have free time, I'm going to listen to this. When the reality is I don't have that much free time to listen to podcasts. I do. I listen to the 4 or 5 that I listen to the most, maybe 6, probably 4 or 5. So I unfollowed a bunch of them because when I would pull up my library, my podcast library, there would be like 35 podcasts and it was decision fatigue for me. So if I know that I only listen to these 5 or 6, I can unfollow the rest of them. I know they're there for me when I want them to be, and I can go back to them whenever I want. So think about the podcast that you're listening to, because you're obviously a podcast listener. If they're not bringing you joy, or if you're not listening to them, take a break. It's okay. I mean, of course you shouldn't take a break from this podcast, but seriously, if whatever is not resonating with you, take a break, even if it's mine. Of course, I prefer you don't. Take a break and think about, you have a limited and finite amount of time. What you take in will inform your thoughts, your emotions, and your beliefs. So make sure this is content that is serving your highest self and serving your highest good. Okay, let's talk. This is a big one. Now we're going to talk about people. What are you consuming with the people around you? So this is your friend group, your colleagues, could be your family, the people that you surround yourself with. So specifically, the people that you surround yourself with will influence and inform your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. So if there's someone toxic that's in your life and you can't let go of them for whatever reason, pay attention to what you're actually paying attention to with them, because eventually that will impact how you think. Have you ever felt, and I know you felt, when you're feeling anxious or on edge, which is probably often for a lot of people right now. I mean, I just mentioned, I looked at one news channel and there were 4 horrific stories in a row. You can't turn anything on without something being a devastating story anymore. So think about when you're with your friend group. All right, let's just pick friends. If you have a negative Nelly or a energy vampire in your circle, how do you think and feel when you're with them? And why are you giving them your precious energy or oxygen? Why are you giving them oxygen to continue to fuel those negative comments or behaviors? And I know this is easier said than done. And I am not saying cut everybody out of your life that you don't agree with. I'm saying particularly over the next 8 to 12 weeks, holidays, New Year's, there is never a more competing demand for our time. So think about what you're taking in and who you're with when you're taking it in. You can feel inspired every day, and you have the ability to do this by choosing what you're consuming. So let's talk about work colleagues for a sec. This is a tough one because many times you're thrown into a situation with people at work and you can't really say, well, hey guys, guess what? I'm not going to show up for this meeting. But you can regulate what you take in. And Debbie Downer at work, anybody remember that SNL skit? It was awesome. If there's someone at work that's a Debbie Downer and always glass half empty, sure, you can sit and you can talk with them. You get to decide what you internalize and you get to decide what you pay attention to. You have control over what you pay attention to. Now, I'm not saying that you should only hang out at work or at home with people who are exactly like you and think what you think. There's danger in groupthink. There's a lot of danger in that. What I'm saying is you can consciously and strategically decide where your energy goes as it relates to what you are consuming mentally. I'm going to give you a real life example. I just did this morning. So I don't know if you all have done the iOS update yet. If you have an iPhone, it's a little traumatic. I'm going to warn you right now. My phone, it's like an alien took over my phone. So I was on my phone trying to figure out all these new bells and whistles, and I wanted to change my watch face because it's too much information. Like I have to scroll through 4 things just to get to what I want to on my watch face. So I go to my watch face. This is a really simple example. And I get a new one, or I download a new one of the free ones. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Why do I have all these icons? I don't think I realized I don't have to have reminders, exercise, messages, calendar. You can have this all on that one little watch face, on that little, 2-inch square on your wrist. I don't want that. There's 2 things I want. I want to be able to click, start tracking my exercise because that's something that I like to do, and or be able to tell the time, and click, be able to check a text message very quickly. That's all I want to do on the first screen. Now, if I want to keep going and do all the other stuff and look at my calendar and all those things, sure, that technology is awesome. But every day, think about how many times you look at your watch. Every day when I look at my watch, I don't want to see all these notifications, all these things pecking at me all day long. So I changed it. And I now have, here's the time, Nance. Here's the date. Click right here if you want to track your exercise. And by the way, here's how you can quickly check a message. It was a game changer. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is, and I can't remember why I wrote this down, but I did. So I'm just going to go with it. Even the questions that you ask. And I think what I probably was thinking at the time was, when you ask questions, when you're in a conversation with someone, or even the questions you ask yourself, but let's just talk about someone else. When you're in a conversation with someone, the questions that you ask are going to, in turn, produce information for you to process. So those answers is going to be information that you're going to need to process. So think about the questions that you're asking and the information you are seeking. And is the information you are seeking what you want to be seeking? So is the information that you are seeking really what you want to filter through your brain on a daily basis? So this could be asking questions that you don't want the answer to. This could be asking a question that you're not ready yet to fully unpack the answer to. It could be asking a question for the sake of humoring someone. Again, finite amount of energy, time, and brain space, and you get to decide who gets it. So I'm going to end with this and a call to action. Think about food. If I eat X, I'm going to feel like X. So I'll go with me because I'm my reference point. If I eat a big plate of nachos, loaded nachos, which if I eat a big plate of loaded nachos, I'm going to feel like crap in about 20 minutes. I'm going to feel awful probably for like 3 hours. So I don't really eat nachos. I like them. I like the initial 1 or 2 bites, but it's just gross and I feel gross after. Yet I eat it anyway sometimes, or I'll have a couple bites sometimes, and then I'll feel gross. Sometimes it's worth it. Sometimes I might want to indulge in a sweet that I know I'm going to feel a little lethargic after because it's super, super dense or super whatever, chocolatey or super sugary, and I'm going to have a crash later. Sometimes it's worth it. So think about that with your thoughts and what you consume in terms of what you're putting into your mind. Is it really worth it? Is it going to be worth it? And that's what I would ask you to ask yourself. So here's your call to action. Number 1, I want you to consider unfollowing 3 people in your feed. So we do things in threes here at Unmute Yourself. If you've read the book, people remember things in threes. So I always work in threes. Pick 3 people to unfollow in your feed. I promise you they're not going to be offended. And I also promise you that it's going to clear up your feed for other people and other thoughts and other points of view that perhaps you're missing because you have these people that make you feel yucky and then you just log off. So unfollow 3 people. 2, I want you to start noticing who around you is bringing you joy and who around you is lifting you up and who around you is not. And then make some decisions about how much time you spend with them or how much brain space you allow for them. That's not going to be as easy. And so that's why I say just start noticing, right? Because if you do this now, maybe you just start thinking about these energy vampires, or maybe you start thinking about this now so that in January, the new year, new me energy, when you're ready to start making some life decisions, or when when you're ready to start leveling up your game, you will be able to think about what you need to get rid of to make way for some of the new people that you want in your life. Because if you start taking out what's not bringing you joy, you open yourself up to what will. The last call to action, and I somewhat hesitate to ask this. So here's what's up. I don't monetize this podcast, and I don't do that on purpose. So I don't have commercials because I don't want you to have to sit through, hi, I'm Nancy, and these are the mattresses that I use, and here's the sheets that I use, and here's the whatever. That's not why I do this podcast. I do it to help spread the message, and I do it to help empower people, and I do it to help you live a little better and thrive a little more. The easiest and best way for me to do that is if you leave a review. If you leave a 5-star review, either on Spotify or on Apple. What happens when you do that is written reviews, great. Just the stars is also good. That will propel the podcast forward or upward in the algorithms and will get this community out to more people. So a couple things. 1, we are now in 45 countries. Welcome, Greece. Sagapo to whoever's listening in Greece. So you can leave a 5-star review, share this episode with someone that you know might want to hear it, or share a previous episode. I get some really great messages from you all, and I love those more than anything. And what would really, really make a difference for this community is if you take that episode and share it with someone, or if you take a snapshot of you listening to the episode, or take a snapshot of where you're listening to the episode or the episode and share it on your social media feeds. That's what's going to help build this community. And that's what's going to help lift us all higher so that we can thrive. So that is my message for you this week. I cannot wait to see you all next week. We are vibing and thriving over here at Unmute Yourself, the podcast. And thank you for listening. Can't wait to hear what you think about this episode. See you next week. Peace out, Podsters.